Obviously, she's kind of been dealt a tough hand, and, that girl only has positive things to say about her teammates and the way she carries herself on and off the court, the way she works hard, and none of that has changed, since I've known her since she was in middle school. She's always worked that same way. She's always had that fire. She's always been a great leader, and, I really honestly couldn't be happier for her in the year that she's had, and, the way she's led this team back to the Final Four when they've kind of been dealt a tough hand as a program, and they never made excuses. And to me, I think that's something, you just really admire as a competitor more than anything. So I think it's really cool.
Caitlin Clark just named the 5 toughest players she's ever faced, and number 3 is going to blow your mind. We're not talking about a simple list here. This is Clark pulling back the curtain on who actually gave her nightmares on the court. Think about it. Clark is the player who broke records, dominated college basketball, and took the WNBA by storm as a rookie. She's faced hundreds of defenders trying to stop her, but only 5 made her list of the absolute toughest. These aren't just skilled players. These are the ones who got inside her head, forced her to adjust her game, and made her work harder than anyone else. And the crazy part is that some of the biggest names you'd expect aren't even on here. Let's start with someone who's been getting under Clark's skin since day one. Jonquel Carrington is the kind of player who doesn't just want to beat you. She wants to make you remember her every single time you step on the court. When Clark talks about Carrington, there's this edge in her voice, this acknowledgement that their matchups are never easy. And if you've watched them play, you know exactly why. Carrington plays defense like she's got something to prove every single night, and against Clark, that intensity gets turned up to a whole different level. Their first WNBA matchup set the tone for everything that followed. Carrington wasn't starstruck by the rookie sensation. She didn't give Clark the space that other defenders sometimes gave her out of respect or hesitation. Instead, she was right there in her face, pressuring every dribble, contesting every shot, and talking the entire time. That's Carrington's game. She's physical, she's relentless, and she's not afraid to get into your head with some well-placed trash talk. But here's what makes Carrington so tough specifically for Clark. She's fast enough to stay with Clark on the perimeter, strong enough to body her off her spots, and smart enough to anticipate where Clark wants to go before she even makes her move. Most defenders pick one approach against Clark. They either try to pressure her full court, or they lay back and try to contest her shots, or they focus on cutting off her passing lanes. Carrington does all of it at once. She's constantly switching up her defensive strategy, keeping Clark guessing, never letting her settle into a rhythm. And the physical part can't be ignored. Carrington plays right on the edge of what's legal, using her body to redirect Clark's drives, getting her hands in there to disrupt passes and never backing down from contact. For a player like Clark, who relies on creating space with her handles and her movement, facing a defender who refuses to give her that space is incredibly frustrating. You can see it in how Clark has to work twice as hard just to get her regular looks when Carrington is guarding her. What Clark respects most, though, is that Carrington brings that same intensity every single time they play. There's no night off, no possession where she takes a play off. That consistency of effort is what separates good defenders from great ones. And it's why Carrington earned her spot on this list despite not having the same name recognition as some other players. She's proven over and over that she can make Clark's life difficult, and that's exactly the kind of competitor Clark respects most. But if you think Carrington is tough, wait until you hear about the legend who tried to welcome Clark to the league in the most brutal way possible. Diana Taurasi is basketball royalty, 3 WNBA championships, 5 Olympic gold medals, and a career that's already cemented her as one of the greatest players in the history of women's basketball.
She was one of the first that I really knew about and supported and, idolized and wanted to be like. And, I just admired the way she played the game, the fire that she played with. And like I said yesterday, it's impressive that she's still able to play this game at such a high level and produce the way she does. It's incredible. I think she's obviously the best scorer our game has ever seen and one of the best players our game has ever seen.
But here's the thing about Taurasi that makes her different from every other legend. She doesn't care about your feelings, your hype, or your potential. She only cares about winning, and she'll do whatever it takes to get inside your head and break you down. Before Clark even played her first WNBA game, Taurasi made headlines with her comments about the rookie sensation. She basically said that reality was going to hit Clark hard, that the WNBA was a different beast, and that all the college success in the world doesn't guarantee anything at this level. Some people called it disrespectful. Others called it bulletin board material, but Taurasi didn't care. She was sending a message not just to Clark, but to every young player coming into the league. You want respect? Earn it. The first matchup was everything basketball fans hoped it would be. Clark versus the legend, the new generation against the old guard. And Taurasi didn't disappoint. She wasn't the primary defender on Clark most of the time, but when she did guard her, you could see decades of experience at work. Taurasi knows every trick in the book because she invented half of them. She knows how to use her positioning to take away your favorite moves. She knows when to give you space and when to pressure. She knows exactly what to say to throw you off your game. But here's what makes Taurasi truly difficult for someone like Clark. It's not just the physical defense, it's the mental warfare. Taurasi has this ability to make you doubt yourself, to make you think twice about every decision. She'll give you a look that says she knows exactly what you're about to do. She'll laugh after you miss a shot, not in a mean way, but in a way that gets into your head. She'll make a tough shot over you and then stare you down, reminding you that she's still got it even after all these years. Clark has said in interviews that playing against Taurasi forced her to mature faster than she expected. You can't play your normal game against someone with that much experience and that much mental toughness. You have to elevate everything. Your decision-making has to be sharper. Your shot selection has to be smarter. Your confidence has to be unshakable, because Taurasi is going to test it every single possession. And the respect between them now is real. After their games, you can see them talking. Clark soaking up knowledge from someone who's been there and done everything. That's what makes this rivalry so special. It's not just about competing. It's about Clark learning from one of the absolute best to ever do it. Taurasi made this list because she represents everything Clark wants to become: a champion, a winner, and someone who's feared by every opponent who steps on the court against her. But legends aren't the only ones who push Clark to her limits. Sometimes your toughest opponent is someone going through the exact same journey as you. Paige Bueckers and Caitlin Clark gave us some of the most incredible college basketball games in recent memory. When Iowa faced UConn, it wasn't just another game, it was must-see television. Two of the most talented guards in the country going head-to-head, both trying to lead their teams to championships, both carrying the weight of massive expectations, and every single time they played, it delivered.
It's not Paige versus Caitlin, and it takes the entire team to win a basketball game, and both of us are going to do everything we can. But I think the coolest thing about Paige is how resilient she is. Obviously, she's kind of been dealt a tough hand, and that girl only has positive things to say about her teammates and the way she carries herself on and off the court, the way she works hard, and none of that has changed.
What made these matchups so special was how similar yet different they were as players. Both could score from anywhere on the court. Both were incredible passers who made their teammates better. Both had that rare combination of skill and basketball IQ that only comes around once in a generation, but their styles were different enough that when they matched up, it created this fascinating chess match. Bueckers plays with this smooth, effortless style that makes everything look easy. She's got this calm demeanor on the court, never seeming rattled or rushed. Her game is about efficiency, about making the right play every single time, about picking teams apart with precision. Clark, on the other hand, plays with this fire and intensity. She's aggressive, she's willing to take tough shots, and she's got this confidence that borders on audacity. When these two styles collided, it was pure basketball magic. The thing that made Bueckers so tough for Clark was that she could match her shot for shot. Every time Clark made an incredible play, Bueckers would come right back with something just as impressive. That's incredibly rare. Most players, even great ones, can't sustain that level of back-and-forth excellence for an entire game. But Bueckers could, and that forced Clark to stay at her absolute peak for 40 minutes, because any let-up, any mistake, and Bueckers would make her pay. Their defensive matchups were equally intense. When Clark guarded Bueckers, she couldn't afford to give her any space because Bueckers would torch her from three. When Bueckers guarded Clark, she had to stay disciplined because Clark would attack any opening. The amount of energy both players had to expend just to neutralize each other was exhausting to watch, and it elevated both of their games to another level. What Clark probably respects most about Bueckers is the mutual understanding they have. They both know what it's like to carry a program, to deal with constant media attention, to have every game analyzed and critiqued. They both know the pressure of being labeled as generational talents. That shared experience creates a different kind of rivalry, one built on respect and recognition of what the other's going through. The college battles between Clark and Bueckers prepared both of them for the WNBA in ways that regular games couldn't. When you're pushed to your absolute limit by someone just as talented as you, it forces you to find another gear. It forces you to develop new moves, new strategies, new mental toughness. Bueckers earned her spot on this list because she made Clark better through competition, and that's the highest compliment one competitor can give another. But if you think the Bueckers rivalry was intense, the next name on this list created a cultural phenomenon that went way beyond basketball. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark gave us one of the most talked about moments in women's sports history.
Walk me through your perspective on the flagrant foul, and what was the point you were trying to make to her?
It's just a good take foul, If either Angel gets wide open 2 points or, we send him to the free throw line. Nothing malicious about it. It's just a take foul. Every basketball player knows that.
The LSU versus Iowa national championship game was already going to be huge. 2 undefeated teams, 2 superstar players, everything on the line. But what happened during and after that game turned it into something much bigger than just a basketball game. It became a cultural moment that had everyone picking sides and debating everything from playing styles to personalities to what it all meant for women's basketball. The gesture, you know the one. Reese pointing to her ring finger, then waving her hand in front of her face with the "you can't see me" taunt directed at Clark. That single moment sparked more debate and discussion than almost anything else in women's sports that year. Some people loved it, saying it was just competitive fire, and that women athletes should be allowed to celebrate and talk trash just like men do. Others thought it crossed a line that it was disrespectful and unsportsmanlike. But regardless of where you stood, one thing was clear: the Reese versus Clark rivalry had arrived, and it was going to be massive. Here's what makes Reese such a difficult matchup for Clark beyond just the rivalry narrative. Their games are completely opposite. Clark is the smooth outside shooter, the crafty ball handler, the player who can beat you from 25 feet. Reese is all power and athleticism, dominating the paint, crashing the boards, and imposing her physical will on the game. When they play, it's not like Clark is matching up directly with Reese most of the time, but Reese's presence changes everything about how Clark's team has to play. Reese controls the paint in a way that makes it harder for Clark to drive. Every time Clark thinks about attacking the basket, she has to account for where Reese is and whether she's going to be there to challenge the shot or grab the rebound if she misses. That split-second hesitation, that mental calculation, it affects rhythm and decision-making. And on the other end, Reese's rebounding creates extra possessions for her team, which means Clark and her teammates have to be even more efficient on offense because they might not get as many chances. The mental and emotional aspect of their rivalry can't be ignored either. These two clearly get under each other's skin. You can see it in how they play when they're on the same court. The intensity ramps up, the competitiveness reaches another level. They both want to prove they're better, that they're the one who deserves all the attention and accolades. That kind of rivalry brings out the absolute best in great players, even if it sometimes brings out some chippy moments too. What's interesting is how their rivalry has evolved since that championship game. They've both entered the WNBA now, and while the media loves to play up the drama, both players have also shown respect for each other's game. Clark has acknowledged Reese's dominance on the boards and her impact as a rookie. Reese has recognized Clark's scoring ability and her importance to the league, but make no mistake, when they play against each other, all that respect goes out the window and it's pure competition. Reese made this list because she represents something unique for Clark. She's not just a tough opponent on the court, she's a rival in the truest sense of the word, someone who pushes her, challenges her, and makes her prove herself every single time they meet. That kind of rivalry is rare in sports, and it's why their matchups will continue to be must-watch basketball for years to come. But here's where things get really interesting. The last name on Clark's list might be the most surprising of all, and it reveals something important about what Clark truly values in an opponent. Napheesa Collier doesn't get the headlines like some other players. She doesn't have the viral moments or the controversial sound bites. She just shows up and plays championship-level basketball every single night. And according to Clark, she's one of the absolute toughest covers in the entire league.
I have great respect for Fee, and I think she made a lot of very valid points. And, I think what people need to understand, we need great leadership in this time across all levels. This is straight up the most important moment in this league's history. This league's been around for 25 plus years, and this is a moment we have to capitalize on. So that's honestly what I would say. I think there's, Fee said it all with what she said, and I think the points she made were very valid.
That tells you everything you need to know about what Clark respects: consistent, intelligent, lockdown defense that gives her absolutely no easy looks. Collier's game is built on fundamentals and basketball IQ. She's not the flashiest defender. She's not going to give you the dramatic chase down blocks or the steal that leads to a fast break dunk. What she does is make every possession incredibly difficult through perfect positioning, quick hands, and an uncanny ability to read where the offense wants to go. For a player like Clark who thrives on rhythm and flow, facing someone like Collier is like trying to play basketball in mud. Everything is just a little bit harder. When Collier guards Clark, she takes away all the easy stuff. She forces Clark off her spots, makes her catch the ball further from the basket than she wants, and contests every shot without fouling. That last part is crucial. A lot of defenders can make things difficult for Clark, but they rack up fouls doing it, which puts them on the bench and gives Clark free throws, Collier plays physical but smart defense. She knows exactly how much contact she can get away with, and she uses that knowledge to frustrate scorers without putting her team in penalty trouble. But Collier isn't just a defensive specialist. She's an elite two-way player who can hurt you on the offensive end too. That means Clark can't just focus on scoring when Collier's on the court. She also has to worry about guarding Collier, who's an excellent shooter, a skilled driver, and a smart cutter. That two-way impact forces Clark to expend energy on both ends, which over the course of a game can really add up and affect her stamina and decision-making. What's most impressive about Collier is her consistency. She brings that same defensive intensity and two-way excellence every single night against every opponent. There's no scouting report trick that works against her because she doesn't have obvious weaknesses to exploit. She's strong enough to guard bigger players, quick enough to stay with guards, and smart enough to make the right rotation every time. That versatility makes her one of the most valuable players in the league, even if she doesn't always get the recognition she deserves. Clark naming Collier as one of her toughest opponents is a sign of maturity and understanding. She's not just listing the players with the biggest names or the most followers on social media. She's identifying the players who actually make her job hardest when they're on the court together. And Collier, with her relentless defensive excellence and complete two-way game, absolutely makes that list. It's a recognition that winning in this league isn't just about flashy moves and highlight plays. It's about handling the grind, the physicality, and the chess match against players who do everything right. The fact that Collier doesn't get as much attention as some other players on this list might actually make her even more dangerous. She's not playing for the cameras or the viral moments. She's playing to win championships, and that focus makes her one of the most difficult players to game plan against. For Clark, who's trying to build a championship-level game herself, facing Collier is like getting a masterclass in what elite two-way basketball looks like at the highest level. As Clark continues her career, this list will probably change. New challengers will emerge, new rivalries will develop, but these 5 players will always be remembered as the ones who tested her when it mattered most, who made her work harder than she ever had before, and who earned her respect through competition. That's what makes basketball beautiful. It's not just about individual greatness. It's about how that greatness is forged through facing the toughest competition possible and coming out stronger on the other side.